only at 22 grams, it amazingly lights up in the dark. So these are the things we're going to need for this build. So you're going to need a frame, and this is the V2 35mm fluorescent frame with its fluorescent canopy. I'll show you how great it is when it's absorbed all the light and it just shines bright fluorescent green in the dark. And we are going to need the flight controller. So the flight controller here is an all-in-one F4 flight controller, BetaFPV with Express RS already built in. Now we'll talk about it, the details in a bit. These are the mounts for the flight controller and 5-blade propellers, and I'll cover why we want 5 blades on this one. And this is the jewel of the crown, which is 0702 motors, 26,000 kV. These are the lightest whoop motors, microwhoop motors you can ever find in the world. And according to the model, this is designed by Angry Dawn FPV. We will see how superb it is. But in order to couple with this superb, light, powerful build, we are going to use the Tank Race V2 VTX. With this Tank Race 2, you're going to get maximum 450 milliwatts, and that should be a great addition to this build. So let's get right to it. Okay, so let's open up the fluorescent frame. The frame itself doesn't look any different, but it's made from special plastic which will absorb the light, and then in the dark it's going to give this bright fluorescent LED, this bright fluorescent glow, which I think, you know, is cool. It's cool, especially when you're doing night racing or indoor racing with LEDs. That would be great. So this is the mount right here. I think it's about 20 by 20. We'll look at that. So let's put on the flight controller. So the flight controller, right now, what's cool about it is, for one, the cross design actually then lightens the weight of it. It has a BT 2.0 connector, and this BT 2.0 connector has a much better throughput compared to the normal PH 2.0 you can find. So what usually people do to get the most power out of their builds is actually swap the PH 2.0 with this BT 2.0, which is from BetaFPV. So when BetaFPV has their flight controllers AIO, natively they will supply it with a BT 2.0. So you can either use adapter, but the problem with adapter is this gives you the high throughput, but then when you adapt to PH 2.0, then it becomes a limiter again. So what's better is actually just cut off the PH 2.0 and just connect directly with BT 2.0. Okay, so 1S AIO, and what's great about this is not just because it has the flight controller and also the ESC on board, but you can see here it actually has a built-in tower antenna. Alright, so we will see in a bit that we are going to have to maneuver a little bit, because when you start putting on the canopy, let me just take out the canopy. The canopy right there. Okay. We'll figure out how to put it together in a bit. But the canopy right now, if you can imagine, okay, let's just put the front part of the canopy right there. With the camera, it's going to interfere with this tower antenna. So it's either we use a bigger canopy, which I don't want to, or I'll just flip it 180 like that, and then sit in better flight. That the flight controller is back to front, and you won't have the camera, when you mount it, hinder with the tower antenna. Okay, so we'll do it right that way. Alright, so putting those things aside, now let's look at here. Let's mount the flight controller first. So you can see here it fits. Flight controller fits. What do you need here to fit there? You need the mounts. So let's put in the mounts. So let's squeeze the rubber grommets in. This tower antenna is not just great because it's compact, but of course it's because it actually gives you more range compared to the flat antennas. Some of the SPI ELRS actually comes in with flat antennas. So this antenna would give you a good range and at the same time weight savings compared to a wired tethered antenna. Okay, so that's the advantage of that one. Okay, now we have all the rubbers in. So so we're gonna mount my flight controller on. So how are we gonna mount? Do I want to mount it this way or this way? So the way that you have to pay attention to is how your flight controller is. My flight controller right now has its USB at this end. So to have access to this USB, I need it to match these openings right here. So basically then I'll have to mount my flight controller, in this case back to front, from back to front or front to back, right this way in the direction of the quad moving forward. Okay, so I am then going to have the USB in these openings, but because now let's say for argument's sake, for simplicity's sake, this is the front, I wanted to put my tower antenna in the back, so therefore the direction must be this way. Okay, and I will then route my my BT 2.0 connector through this opening right there. Okay, and then that's the closest to the front, then put it in. Okay, let's match it. So the motors, I have pulled out the SO702 26,000 kV from Happy Model. So let's open one of them up, not wanting to waste your time. Okay, so what's super about it is not only is it high kV, which means for every volt it will then turn 26,000 times. Okay, for the thrust to weight ratio, it is huge, much bigger thrust compared to the weight. Okay, so let's now take all of them out. Okay, so we have 4 motors here. Okay, 0702, 26,000 kV, 1.5 grams each, with much higher kV compared to the racing 0802, 25,000 kV. So higher kV, much lighter, will give us the souped up performance which we want. 1mm shaft, so we'll just put on the bi-blade propellers on and we're ready to go. So when you look at here, okay, right now I think the markings, the red markings, is clockwise, counterclockwise, but what I'll show you is it doesn't really matter. Just mount it and then look at the direction of the rotation in Betaflight, and then just fix them through Betaflight. Okay, so you don't really have to worry about clockwise, counterclockwise. That's so yesterday. So you're gonna need a small fillet head screwdriver. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay. So if you see here, we want to mount it right there. And then we're going to twist and then just mount it into the connectors, JST connectors, right? Okay, so I'm living and learning that I cannot use this Runcam Nano 3. So I thought that I would be using this. It's just a single board, no protector, very good. But then the problem is it's not made for Mobula7. Yes, I can go ahead and do 3D prints and try to get it fitted in. You can see here, it goes in, but it's loose, right? So I'm gonna have to try to fill that in, use glue and all that. You know, it's just messy. So I then decided, okay, let me swap with this Caddx FPV Ant Lite, right? Different company, but different design also. So this is not the bare minimum version. It has a nice hefty looking lens, but surprisingly it actually fits the design of the Mobula7 quite well. So fitting into the canopy, it fits the opening great. Okay, and then in the back it fits exactly the mount of the canopy. Okay, so how we retain it, we put in retainer. The bottom part then holds the Caddx Ant Lite in place. We just need to screw this in like so. Just snug, good. Okay, now match this with the screw hole right there. It's very slight screw hole. It's even quite difficult to see. It's there, and we have it. Okay, right. That's how it is. You can mount it on here like so. And as we showed before, the reason why we don't want the tower antenna to be on this side, because we don't want it to be interfered with the angle of the camera. Okay, so let's now put on the VTX. This is camera, this is smart audio, this is ground, and this is 5 volts, and that is VTX in. So in the back here is or the back or the front where the tower antenna is. This is where the receiver goes. Right now we already have a built-in receiver. We don't need another receiver, but just in case anybody wanted to use Crossfire, a tracer, or anything like that, I think most likely we use Crossfire with a pigtail, or Free Sky. They could do that, but right now we don't need that because we already have the ERS already built in. So right now we only need to mount the cam and VTX. Okay, so I've soldered on the Race 2 tank, and I've already put on the heat shrink, and I put on this pigtail antenna. It actually was not included in the Rush tank, and I was quite surprised they did include the antenna, but I had this new spare antenna lying around, so I put that in. Okay, so now the heat shrink will retain the UFL connector, right, so it won't come off. But now how to mount. I would prefer to mount it on the top, but for one, its size will also interfere with the camera when we put in, so I don't want that. And at the same time, I don't want it to disrupt the gyro. So what I'll do now is actually undo a little bit of work I've already done. Is I'm going to mount it on the bottom. So the only way to mount it on the bottom is I have to then take off the motor connectors, lift it up, sticky tape it to the bottom of the flight controller, which then will actually be quite good because it actually has sufficient space down there, which I think is typically used for any external receiver. But in this case, we will put in this Race 2, and then we will put the antenna up through the canopy, pointing up. Let's do that. Notice here, I'm actually connecting the 5V and ground of the VTX and the 5V and ground of the camera to the same output on the flight controller. And then I'm connecting the video out of the camera into the video in or cam on the AIO flight controller. And then I'm going out, which is the purple VTX line, into the VTX. So basically then video comes out from the camera, goes into the VTX, goes to your goggles. So after some struggles, and it occurred to me, actually, this is the beauty of this canopy. Go this way, immediately you have access. You can actually now, technically you can look up vertically if you wanted. But now, you have access to put in the connector. Let's try that. You can do it. So now we have the canopy on. Okay, the only thing that I actually did offline off camera was actually insert these red rubber spaces, especially those small rings that fits on the mounts. And the only reason why is I just didn't like the canopy left hanging because the BetaFPV rubbers are a bit smaller compared to the Happy model, which would be much beefier. In this case, it's smaller. These rubbers, as you can see here, is not interfering with the antenna, so that's good. Then I mounted it on, and you just need to you're able to flex this up and down depending on how you want the angle to be. Okay, you can even go vertical like I said before, and the motors are all connected. The antenna is pointing back 36 grams. The build is complete, super light, super bright. Have fun trying it out. So thank you very much for staying right to the end. Like and subscribe.